Early contests build momentum for 2024 contenders seeking the White House. C-SPAN offers unfiltered coverage of events leading into early primaries and caucuses. Get access to speeches and results with the free app, C-SPAN Now, or watch live on the C-SPAN networks.
In 2005, two brothers hit the road to chase demons and fight monsters. You know, like you do. After 15 years, they made television history and built a community of dedicated and lasting fans.
Sure did.
I'm Rob Benedict, and I played God, a.k.a. Chuck Shirley.
Yeah, you are, and yeah, you did. And I'm Richard Spade Jr., and I played the Archangel Gabriel, a.k.a. the Trickster, a.k.a. Loki. I also had the privilege of directing a bunch of episodes of the show.
Have a few more AKAs, why don't you? Jeez.
A.k.a. you're a jerk.
Though we've been involved with the series for years and multiple seasons, we never sat down and watched the entire show.
Oh, that's not true anymore. Now we're deep into it. We are going episode by episode and diving in with the folks who made it to bring you an insider's point of view and some great behind-the-scenes stories from the writers, producers, crew, and actors. And you're getting our pure, honest, unfettered reviews.
And along the road, let me tell you, we're becoming fans.
Buddy, we are super fans.
We've heard you saying it for years, and we finally get what all the excitement's about. This show holds up after all this time and deserves to be watched and rewatched.
We will be hitting on some spoilers, so consider yourself warned. And if you have any angry emails you want to send, please direct them to Babo.
Thank you for joining our journey and listening to Supernatural Then and Now. Hey everybody, this is Rob Benedict.
And I'm Richard Spade Jr.
We're talking about Season 4, Episode 20, The Rapture.
The Rapture.
It must seem like everyone in the world knows about this podcast, but we frequently meet folks who say they just heard about it for the first time.
What podcast are you referring to, Rob?
This very one, Supernatural Then and Now.
Wait, I'm confused. What, you do a podcast?
We do this podcast. It's called Supernatural Then and Now. You and I host it.
You're kidding me. I had no idea.
Yeah. So now you know. And scene. So that's what we're talking about, everyone. Tell a friend about the Supernatural Then and Now podcast.
Thank you very much. I was playing the role of guy who doesn't know about podcasts, but should know about podcasts. And you know what's weird, people? I had to audition for that.
Yeah. I was playing the role of annoyed host.
And you know what's also interesting? I wasn't Rob's first choice for the role.
Oh, no. You still aren't.
Breckenmeyer backed out.
If you don't follow us on the podcast on social media, please do. And share the content and the links we're posting. It isn't fair for you to hog all the fun to yourself.
No, it's not fair. In fact, it's annoying. I get that, you love everything we do and you want to keep it to yourself, but it's a podcast. It's supposed to be listened to by other people. There's that old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, did it make a sound? Well, if a podcast is broadcast and it's fantastic, but only one person hears it, is it really that good? The answer is yes, but it's got to be shared. That's the answer, Rob.
We're talking to you, one listener. But hey, just to remind you, the podcast is on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at SPN Then and Now. We're on Threads too, but we don't really post there because we don't know how to do that.
I don't even know that Threads is still around. Is Threads is Mark Zuckerberg's Twitter, right?
Yeah, it's Instagram's Twitter. Yeah.
It's Instagram's Twitter called Threads.
Yeah.
But why? Can you only message about clothing?
I don't know, man. I don't know. No.
Why is it called Threads?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong thread.
Jacket.
All right, guys, let's get in this summary. What a fun episode. Are you ready, Richard?
I am, man. I am ready. Do that thing you do.
All right, Dean is dreaming about sitting on a dock fishing when Castiel gives him instructions on a place to meet him in the real world. Castiel has special information for him. Sam and Dean arrive at the location, and it is in shambles and marked with angelic sigils. An angel battle took place here. They find Castiel's body, but it isn't Castiel. It's Jimmy Novak, the vessel for Castiel. Castiel is nowhere to be found, and Jimmy Novak just wants to go home to his wife and daughter. In a flashback, we see that Jimmy Novak was a devout Christian who was in contact with Castiel. Through a series of miracles, Jimmy proves his loyalty to Castiel. Jimmy's wife, Amelia, thinks he's mentally ill and he needs help. Jimmy refuses and offers himself to Castiel for whatever his needs are. Castiel possesses Jimmy's body and leaves the family home. In the present, we see Sam explaining to Jimmy that he needs to stay with the brothers. Demons are looking for him. Later that night in the motel room, Dean sleeps. Sam slips out to discreetly drink demon blood. Jimmy takes the opportunity to sneak out as well. Boy, Sam and that demon blood, huh?
Man, he loves that demon blood. Didn't drink out of a flask, though. Got to pour it in his hand first.
No.
Which makes no sense.
It's true. Sam and Dean head out to find Jimmy. Anna appears and tells them Castiel was sent back to heaven. She doesn't know why, but it isn't good. Jimmy, meanwhile, arrives at his home, having been gone for a year. After a trepid welcome from his wife, he is allowed to stay for dinner with his daughter. Roger, a neighbor, knocks on the door and is curious where Jimmy's been. They were best friends. Suddenly, Roger reveals himself to be a demon. Sam and Dean bust onto the scene and save the family. Jimmy realizes that by staying, he is a danger to his wife and daughter. Amelia and Claire leave. Later, Jimmy finds out his family's been captured by demons. The boys and Jimmy head out to find them. Jimmy pleads to Castiel for divine help. He and the brothers get captured. Amelia is now possessed by one of the demons, and she shoots Jimmy in the stomach. Suddenly, Claire reveals she is now the vessel for Castiel. She quickly takes on the demons. Sam and Dean join the fight. In the melee, Sam takes the opportunity to drink blood from a demon that has been stabbed. Dean and Castiel see it and are freaked out. Sam uses his regained powers to banish the demon possessing Amelia. As Jimmy lies dying, Castiel, via Claire, comforts him and tells him that Claire is special too and that he will use her as a vessel. Jimmy begs Castiel to use him instead. Leave Claire alone. Castiel agrees to his wishes and takes Jimmy as his vessel once again. Later, Dean asks Castiel what information he had for him. Castiel ignores Dean's request and says he only works for heaven. On the road, Sam is anxious to hear what Dean thinks about what he saw, the demon blood drinking.
Right.
So,
that's what he saw.
Yeah. But Dean doesn't want to talk about it. Bobby calls and asks them to come to his place to show them something. Once there, Bobby and Dean trap Sam in the safe room. Dun, dun, dun.
Ba, ba, ba. Okay, let's get right into this. Rob and Rich review. Let's talk about the easy payday for Jim Beaver. Mr. I'm in this episode and literally worked a half a day. Must be nice, Jim Beaver.
Same with Julie McNiven.
McNiven popped up in the back of a car, but at least I felt like she kind of was there early, and I don't know, you're right. She just sat in the back of the car. But nonetheless, like I was sitting there watching, I saw Jim's name in the credits. I'm like, oh, where's Jim Beaver? At the end, he's like, hey, guys, I got to tell you something. Roll credits.
Yeah. I do feel like a lot of times with Jim Beaver, like, he was in like 80 episodes, but like many of them are him just going like, boys, we got a problem.
You idiots.
He's in,
yeah. Hey, listen, that's a great gig if you can get it.
Yeah. And a fine actor he is.
A couple of things I want to talk about this episode. And I know that everybody's going to go, Misha's so great. Well, I'm here to tell you, I agree. Misha's really, really great.
You're right.
Does a great job.
And listen, and we're not just saying it because we're fans of Misha and he's a friend. I didn't know this episode existed. I knew there was a Jimmy Novak episode. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I thought this episode was the one where I thought it was a different episode. I thought it was a completely different episode. I didn't know it was the Jimmy Novak episode. I thought Jimmy Novak episode came later, and I thought this was the one where they go in the future and I talk about toilet paper. I thought I was in this episode.
That would be a shocking revelation.
Watching the beginning, and I was like, wow, I didn't get a front end credit.
I love that immediately you got your ego bruised about something that had nothing to do with you. Like, those sons of bitches. You're hammering out a letter on your typewriter as they... All
right, to my agent.
Dear CW.
No, but let me tell you, I was so pleasantly surprised. What a great episode. And Misha doesn't miss a beat. He's so good. And the two characters are so different. You realize how much of a character he's playing in Castiel.
Yeah. And I got to tell you something. This happens on TV a lot. And people do not realize this outside the world that you and I are in. When they auditioned Misha, they auditioned him as Castiel.
Right.
And he came in going, Dean, you got to go this way and that way and follow what I say. Mm-hmm. And so they cast that guy based on that. For all they know, everything else he is going to do in different facets of the character are going to be giant turds. They have no idea what they've hired. And so Misha's given this task sight unseen. There's no re-auditioning the guy. Mm-hmm. He's got the role. They don't know what he's going to do for Jimmy Novak. They don't know he's going to play the emotion of all that. He crushes it. They had to be doing backflips when they got the dailies back as they were shooting this episode. Mm-hmm. And luckily it's a Charles Beeson episode, so it's in the steady hands of a veteran. But nonetheless, Misha's great in it. His relationship with his daughter and his wife, the vulnerability he shows, the blind faith he shows, the abject disappointment of realizing he's been sort of betrayed, if you will, or that it didn't turn out to be what he thought it was going to be. Yeah. Just great. Just so well done.
Yeah. It's a Jeremy Carver episode.
Oh, yeah. One of the best as well. So you got the best and the best. It was so well done.
Yeah.
I loved everything, every part that Misha had in this. And Rob knows, I don't say this lightly, because Misha is not a good person. He cheats in Wordle. And I don't...
That's true. He does cheat in Wordle.
I don't think he's a quality person currently, now.
Well, we're also burned right now because Misha possibly, or so he says, got Wordle in two days in a row.
Yeah, which just does not make any sense.
Misha normally he's a 5, 6.
5, 6, maybe he just doesn't even show up.
Yeah.
2 back-to-back.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. Shady.
So
thank you. Welcome to my world, Richard. Now you get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you used to accuse me of cheating because I would get it in 4 once. Like, whatever.
Everybody who's not me cheats.
That, by the way, that's the title of your autobiography, I hope.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, so anyway, we're talking nicely about Misha, and we're doing it through gritted teeth. So just know that, everybody, that he's a Wordle cheater and a cheater in Wordle. And if you cheat in Wordle, you got to wonder what's under the hood. Where else do you cheat? But I'll move on. Yeah. I'm just thinking taxes. If you're with the IRS, I'd give that a look. I'm just going to move on. I think Misha did an unbelievable job. He was. I just loved his vulnerability and his performance. Yeah. It was just great, and the writing was great.
Yeah.
I bought everything about this setup. I just thought it was so well done, and his return and his buddy coming in to talk to him, like, "Oh, I'll grab a beer." Just such a lovely familiarity, and it was just great.
Yeah. And like I said, I knew this episode. I knew this episode was out there. I didn't quite know it. This is the way it went, and the fact that it was this early in the Castiel storyline as we know it. Like, what I'm trying to say is, this is season 4. He just started in beginning of season 4. So like, it's a big ask to give this actor who's been on at this point, 6 or 7 episodes. So this is a big episode for him, and he just nails it. So
he did a great job.
I have possibly one of my favorite episodes so far of the show.
I'll say his story, to take a storyline that isn't the boys and go on this other journey for an origin story, it's incredibly compelling. It changes how you look at Castiel, because now you understand the suit he's wearing and the heart and mind of the man who said yes to this and why. It's great. Yeah. It's really great.
Yeah. And now, and also Jensen and Jared were happy because they didn't have to work as much on this episode.
They got a couple of days off to go tear up the town.
Couple days.
You know who paid the price for this episode? The watering holes of Vancouver. Well, of course, they made a lot of money that weekend, but also a couple of tables were flipped over. Who knows? A couple of things I want to say that I was like a little bit of a for me. One I kind of mentioned in the summary. I didn't really get the
Debbie Downer.
I didn't get the like, Sam's not eating demon Tic Tacs. Like, why do you open a flask and pour it in your hand? Like, that didn't make any sense to me for the blood.
So that we could see it as the audience.
I know, but you got to come up with another way, man. Like, have like something go down the chin or something. But it made literally, like, Rob, when you're at a party, and I've seen you do this, and you pull like a small vial of Coke because you want to get a little bump to get the thing rolling.
Right.
You put it on a mirror or a solid table or something where it's not going to get absorbed. You don't put it on in the sugar bowl where it gets mixed up, or in the carpet. You do it where you can get a nice solid toot to get.
No, you put it in the web of your hand, and you snort it right off the web of your hand.
You know how to get Coke from the vial to the nose into the body, so you can rock and effing roll. And if you put the blood in your hand, it's going to leave residue, demon blood, in the creases of your hand. You're not going to get all the quality demon blood you want into your body. It's a waste of demon blood. So just from a logistics standpoint, I don't like it. From a story standpoint, it didn't make sense.
You just proved yourself wrong, because you don't snort the Coke from the vial. You snort the Coke from your hand. The vial,
a liquid the Coke you get is the good stuff, and it's not going to work its way into the skin like that unless you sit there for a minute, which you don't, because you are a real Coke.
I'm so coked up.
Yeah,
because I'm real coked up.
And then that's not going to be a problem for you. And this isn't your episode about your Coke addiction either. This is about Jared and Sam and the blood. And the blood is going to get stuck. Go do it now. Go put syrup on your hand. Lick it up. You're still going to have syrup there. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Noted. And what's the other?
The other thing is,
Debbie Downer.
Sam cuts a woman on the neck, like this little like nick, and leans down and comes back looking like a 4-year-old and buried himself in a cake. Like he literally goes down to like suck the blood off the woman. She has just a droplet visible, and he goes down like suck, 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 and then he looks up, he's like, huh? And you're like, you almost wanted Dean to go, Sam, did you drink the demon blood? No, Dean, and I resent the character assassination. Yeah, I thought that from a makeup standpoint, I was like, well, that's a little over the top. And then they had to have a conversation. He looked like, literally, it was like, look like every child I ever had after their first birthday when you put the cake out. Right. Anyway, so those two things bumped for me a little bit.
Yeah, but I appreciate that his demon blood addiction is sort of, they're using the metaphor of like a drug addiction.
Yeah. It's good performance. Those are not performing notes. Those are just kind of logistical story notes. I'm with you. Kind of funny.
I'm with you.
So let's get into the. All right. So we know we love it. We know that Jim Beaver got a big check for doing very little. We know that Sam and Dean did great. We also know that maybe Jared should get his drugs differently into his body and maybe not make a mess of sucking out of the body of a dead human. Anyway, so let's give a score to this, a beard score. I'm going to give this.
Yeah, I'm Kenny Loggins.
What?
I'm Kenny Loggins. Oh, wow. I'm not.
Okay.
It's not the full. It's not Footloose, which I've established a couple episodes ago as my ultimate goal.
Right.
But it's 80s Kenny Loggins. I really enjoyed this.
I did too. I'm not going Stapleton just because I think there's a couple of like those kind of things that keep it from being a perfect episode. But I'm going to go solid, strong episode. I'm going to go 1969 Charlie Manson.
Oh.
I think it's a strong episode. And Charlie had a nice beard. The hippies related to him. It was full. I just think I think it makes sense, but it wasn't. There's something going on that didn't. Just a couple things that didn't quite work. In Charlie's case, is that he was planning the murder of an entire
mass murder,
affluent section of Los Angeles to race bait them into a race war that would hopefully end society. And in our case for the show, it was the blood drinking.
Wow. That took a turn. Your beard metaphor really took a turn.
Well, I just watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so I had the Manson on the mind.
You're like, I'm going to give it the Jim Jones.
You got the David Koresh. I think it's.
I'm going to give it the David Koresh too. All right, there you have it, guys. I gave it the Kenny Loggins, and Rich gave it the Killer of the Week.
1969 is specific to the year. I don't want the later prison Manson where he looked like a nutbag.
Okay,
I'm talking about. Pre-murder Manson, okay? Pre-murder.
We've got a great interview today. It's always fun having returning guests. We're developing our own roster of returning guest stars, and these folks are special because they bring such a unique perspective, having worked on the show for nearly its entire run.
I learn something every time.
Yeah, especially with this guy. We had such a lovely conversation with the producer, Todd Aronauer. And here's our interview with Todd.
Hey, this is Richard Spate. You know what? It's 2024. It's a brand new year, and I bet you made some New Year's resolutions, and I bet one of them was to eat healthier. Well, you can get cranking on that resolution right now, my friend, with Factor. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, the cooking fatigue. I'm getting tired just talking about it. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you will have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart this resolution off right. Forget frantic lunch prep and rush dinner making. That stinks. Factor's 2-minute meals, yes, I said 2 minutes, are your secret weapon in the new year. You get to fuel up fast with restaurant-quality meals all delivered right to your door. It doesn't get any easier than that. And Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep you going no matter what's on the schedule. So I know what you're asking. Rich, how do I tap into this Factor magic? You head to factormeals.com/SPNTAN50 and use code SPNTAN50 to get 50% off. That's a lot off. That's code SPNTAN50 at factormeals.com/SPNTAN50 for 50% off. Make that resolution happen now and make it happen at a discount. Fantastic food that's healthy and delicious and delivered right to my door. Now that is how you start the new year off right.
Early contests build momentum for 2024 contenders seeking the White House. C-SPAN offers unfiltered coverage of events leading into early primaries and caucuses. Get access to speeches and results with the free app, C-SPAN Now, or watch live on the C-SPAN networks.
Thanks for coming back to discuss the show with us. For starters, just a little quick side note. We were just talking before we started the interview about the fact that Todd is on What We Do in the Shadows, which is just such a cool show to be working on.
It's a ton of fun.
That's awesome.
Great people working on it. Coming on when I did is just really welcoming and good to be part of it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun.
That's a cool show. If people aren't watching that, they should check it out. The movie is also, by the way, I'm a massive fan of the movie that launched the whole series.
I give my children
really cool.
Every Christmas for the last several Christmases, I've been giving them tchotchkes that have to do with that show. So like this last time, it was like little keychains that had like Nandor on them. But
I just got my Funko Pops. My first of
nice.
Of
many. I've got
a couple of them. Won't be delivered until like June or July.
Okay. Yeah, I got them Funko Pops as well. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
All right. Speaking of Funko Pops, we're talking about Castiel, and there's a big episode for him at the end of season 4. So before we get into sort of that dynamic, season 4 was a pivot from Monster of the Week to Angel Demon. Do you recall much chatter amongst the team about this topic, about making that shift?
For the arc of the season?
Yeah. Just going from Monster of the Week to now in the season talk, we're doing angels, we're doing demons, we're doing, the higher ups of heaven.
Season 3, there was a drastic shift, and a lot of that had to do with the strike. Back then, it was a shortened season.
Right.
Coming out of the strike, we did, I think it was 4 episodes, starting with Ghost Facers being the first one. And I think from that point, there was an obvious shift of tone at the end of last season, because writers had a lot of time to just ideate different storylines, different structures. Even though Kripke did have the first 5 seasons mapped out in his own brain, there was talk. Once there was, you introduce heaven, you introduce demons, then what's the opposite of demons? Angels, heaven, hell, and you start to introduce a lot more of open up the world. And it wasn't necessarily a specific discussion, I don't think, outside of the writer's room. In the writer's room, I wasn't really privy to that part of it, but I'm sure that they had a lot of discussions kicking around with the story brainiacs that were in there, and Jeremy Carver being one of them.
Yeah, here's the question, because Eric has talked about how he had rejected the idea of doing angel stories forever, like out of hand. Anybody who pitched an angel story, he's like, no way, we're not doing that. And then he makes this pretty seismic shift, as Rob pointed out. Even though you're not in the writer's room when that's happening, you're down the hall. The whole staff is there and prepping for the show and following the scripts as they come out. Was it a surprise to see this really redesigning of the show, Rob? Kind of like if you go from Monster of the Week to one giant arc that's carrying through with basically another series regular. You're kind of it's a big change. I'm curious, even just as a member of the inner circle, was it eyebrow raising at all? Like, oh wow, we're really doing something different now.
Well, the introduction of Castiel, he was never supposed to be a series regular. He was never supposed to be as prominent in the series as he became. So I think in editing, when we were cutting his first couple episodes, it's like, wow, we really have some storylines we could draw upon. We really have somebody that we could make more of a meal out of and go in this direction that we didn't really think was a series direction before, but now we do, seeing how it's pieced together.
Yeah, and this episode is a great example of that. Like, the whole idea of like the Castiel is an angel inside a meat suit, which just happens to be, Jimmy, this character, and then we get to find out who he was and what his family was like. Now, do you recall the most challenging aspect of this episode, The Rapture? Was it like the VFX, or was it, the vanquishing touch or wire removal, if there was any, or anything like that? Do you remember any?
There really wasn't too much visual effects in this episode.
Yeah.
There was the escaping demons, there was the slashes and the angel effects coming in and out of Jimmy.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a big episode visual effects wise. It was really editing and just making the story interesting and build the tension, because it's fairly slow for a lot of it. And you do have a different storylines going on. Sam drinking the blood and demon blood and what he's going through and his powers, struggling with that. Dean seeing it. So it's a lot of the emotional side of Jimmy realizing he's back and with his family, and then wanting to get Castiel back into his body.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of different storylines where you got to tell each story and give it its time. So in editing, it was finding the right pacing, the right time to make that all interesting, and not any one of them, not do disservice to any one of those storylines.
Right. What about when the characters cut themselves with the knives and the blood and all that? Is that VFX, or is that a rigged?
That's practical. We have actors. We have them sign waivers and say that this needs to happen practically. And that's why.
I'll tell you right now, post-strike, you could get that waiver signed by a lot of people. A lot of people will be on board with doing that kind of thing right now.
Doctor standing by.
Some of that is special effects on set, where it might be practical, or some of it's practical, and then we just do some visual effects cleanup. Sometimes we might have the wound there, and then visual effects just erases it at the start of it, and it's just revealed. So depending on what production has time for and what they could do, those seem fairly small, uncomplicated. I wouldn't be surprised if production had done them and maybe visual effects did some cleanup.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, the not a lot of VFX in this episode. It's held together by performances, and Misha is so great in this episode, how he switches back. I mean, Jimmy is so different than Castiel.
Dude.
When did you first meet Misha?
First time I met him face to face would have been ADR, when he came in for any one of his episodes where we needed him to come in and do a better performance than what he did on the day.
which was often. No,
shouldn't say better or different. It might have been just clean up, just fix some bumps in the mic.
You must have to see those actors many times before you start to develop rapport. Is that fair to say?
Depends. A lot has to do with their attitude when they come in. Are they receptive to it? Are they nervous about it? Some actors need a little bit more coaching and direction in that.
I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to say it right now, nobody's better at ADR than Rob Benedict. I've seen him do it. It's jarring how good he is at replacing dialogue. And Rob, for the listeners at home, since this is your area of expertise, you're good at it. Let's explain what ADR is, because I don't think that terminology is something we've well,
this is where the actors will come in and replace or change their dialogue. A lot of times what it is you're adding grunts and screams and breaths. Sometimes you're just like, if you're, it's a running scene or something. It's something they didn't get practically when you're on set, or something they need to change from what you did on set. Todd, what does ADR stands for?
Right.
There's
I always thought it was automatic dialogue replacement or something.
I thought additional dialogue recording. What is it?
Yeah, it's both. It could be either additional dialogue replacement, dialogue recording, audio dialogue recording.
Right.
And David ran. It could be whatever you want it to be. He doesn't really, it could be. ADR truly has no meaning, I'm discovering right now. It's just gibberish.
I will say about ADR and seeing the guitar behind Robin, knowing both of you guys are musically inclined. Honestly, people that do play instruments, that sing, that get the rhythm and the timing and the beats of music and have a musical background, they do pick up on ADR a lot quicker, just right out of the gate, because it is a timing, a pacing, a rhythm, a cadence, that after hearing what you've done, and because if it's a production fix that we have to do, not that production did anything wrong, but sometimes there's a like a mic
Yeah.
hit, a mic
Yeah.
tap, or
muffled,
or you
or
hear clothing rustle, as well as sometimes it might be performance of a word
Yeah.
or connecting sentences. But hearing what you've done in production and what the producers are going for and getting that, it's a timing to jump in at the right
Yeah.
spot, because the way ADR works, the way the actor would get their cue is on screen and audibly. Sometimes it's a streamer where you see two lines, and as soon as those two lines come together,
Right.
then
Right.
the actor would start their
Right.
line. Or it's
The beeps.
you hear the three beeps, and then it's the fourth imaginary
Right.
beep,
Beep.
Which
noise.
is very musically inclined because it's a rhythm, right?
Right. So you're getting that countdown, like 2, 3,
Right.
4,
Exactly.
and then
Yeah.
telling the whole band to
Yeah.
start. So
And not to mention, the Imaginary Beeps was a great band in the early 80s.
Yeah.
I loved the Imaginary Beeps.
They were doing new wave before
everything
anyone
they put
else.
out, you know? And the way they'd count it in, they'd go 1, 2, 3,
Yeah. Little
and then
extra.
start playing. And they'd always leave that the blank fourth beat.
coming off 4.5.
Yeah, Rob's already good at it. Now he's assumed it's because he's a lead singer in a band, which I think is probably
I
that.
never
so
thought
that
about
tracks
that,
the
but I'm
same
sure
logic.
it did.
You're used to being on microphone, or you're used to hearing yourself back in your headphones.
Specifically with Misha, not necessarily the Rapture episode, but specifically with his ADR, a lot of times for when he first started, we thought there was something wrong with his mic, with his lav mic, because when he does his Castiel voice, he goes in such a low register, and his lav mic is usually taped to his shirt close to his chest, and because he's in such a low register, it would cause his chest to
Oh my
rattle
God.
and also the mic to rattle.
That's crazy.
So on the technical side, Mike Lachey, who you guys have had on, he would often be like, we have to talk to sound mixer, we have to Don Pancho, we have to talk to him because Misha's mic, it's broken, it's rattling, and he needs to replace it. I talked to Don, I'd be like, he uses a different mic each time. It's not his lav mic, it's something else. And then I think even Jared or Jensen kind of put their hand on his chest at one point, not knowing the mic issue, was just like, wow, feel his chest when he does that.
Wow.
Because they have their own character voices that they do once it's action.
Right.
They go into their sort of lower register tone, their on-camera persona. And Misha's was just so low, it was just causing his mic to rattle like that. And it took us a while to figure that out.
Yeah, you don't even realize how low he's actually going from his normal voice until you get to this episode. And knowing these guys now, and hearing the way they sounded, whatever, almost 20 years ago, it was funny. At first, I thought that his Jimmy voice was actually ADR'd in from. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, everybody. You know what I mean? I'm Jimmy.
That's a lot closer to his.
Let's
extra. War breaks out in Europe.
Yeah,
I was really. That's amazing. That's really wild.
So here's a question for you about kind of dipping back into the episode itself. One of the things that's different about this episode is that at the end of the episode, it doesn't say to be continued. It says soon, and there are previews of future episodes, which, unless I'm mistaken, I don't remember seeing that. My first thought was, oh, this episode ran short. They needed to put filler material in this thing. But I don't know. Like, why was that all there?
That's exactly right. When you're delivering for a network, streamers and cable off-network providers, they don't really have these strict guidelines that networks do, because networks have to deliver international, they have to deliver domestic. So they also have to be within a certain amount of time. The episodes have to be to a specific time, including credits and logos at the end. It needs to be to the second. And they want it to be exactly to the second of what their target time is for every episode.
So are you saying that this episode came in under?
So this episode came in short. So sometimes what we did, CW, we would always find out, okay, our target time is 42:30. How short can we be? How much can we come under that? And how much is acceptable? And they would say, well, send us the episode and we'll see. And it happened a number of times. So there's a bunch of episodes throughout the series where we found filler stuff to do. But a lot of times we came in really short, and we would have to ask, well, why can't we come in under? And they would say, well, we have a domestic delivery time But then international, we have to deliver to a certain time. We ended up a bunch of times having a domestic delivery that was at a lower running time, and we'd have to find filler to fulfill our international delivery time. So international, we, after much talking to people, going down the line, asking why, getting it, figuring out, well, we can deliver a shorter domestic episode and just do those coming soons for international. So the coming soons, a lot of times those, I don't even think aired domestically. I think they were only delivered. So we would deliver two separate masters, an international master and a domestic master, having different running times.
Isn't one of your role-playing names International Master, Rob? I feel like that when you're going to your sex club, you say I'm going to the library, but I know you mean.
But only when I'm not out of the United States.
But here you go by domestic master. It's interesting. I like the way you switch it up, and you talk with an accent overseas. I got to tell you, Rob, and I mean this, there's never a time we have Todd on that I don't walk away feeling either a little smarter or a little dumber. But mainly what it is there's a lot that I don't know that goes on in your department, my friend. And I always find these conversations fascinating. So thank you again for coming and having one of those conversations with us today. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Definitely more to talk about. We'll have you back again.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Hey there, this is Jensen. I hope you're enjoying the episode, but we need to pull over for a second for some messages, and I gotta take a leak. Thanks for supporting Supernatural then and now. And now, back to the show.
Well, that was great. Always love having the returning guests and Todd.
I'm just smarter now. I know more stuff. I'm just telling you.
Yeah,
it's no joke.
And I thought you knew everything, but it turns out you don't. Okay, before we go to the next segment, we have a clip to play from our conversation with Misha earlier this season, referencing this episode. Let's hear what Misha had to say. Okay, so in episode 20 of this season, you played Jimmy Novak, who's Castiel's vessel.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to ask you a question about that. Like, how was your performance different to depict Jimmy?
Well, I tried to create a contrast. So I tried not to have the same voice and, just tried to do regular human.
What did he do? What does Jimmy do?
Jimmy was a complicated character because I wish we had been able to get more into that character, because in the story, an angel cannot take possession of a vessel. This becomes important when the archangel Michael is trying to get Dean's vessel. Dean has to let him in. Like, that was a big, I don't know if you remember, but that was a big part of that storyline. It's like getting Dean to acquiesce, getting Dean to say yes. So this character, Jimmy, who is a father and a husband and an employee, is like, you know what? You can take my body and my life. Go for it. And I don't feel like we got into that story enough, because how desperate do you have to be? How miserable do you have to be in your life to agree to let a supernatural being take over your body?
Yeah.
And we touched on sort of his piousness, but I think it would have been interesting to show like this guy having some real issues.
Yeah.
to actually be willing.
It's basically suicide.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that he thought it was permanent, but I'm not sure.
You say he was a pious.
He probably thought
he was a pious.
Yeah, he was religious.
Uh-huh.
I think we know that because he was like he was speaking to the angel prior to. Yeah.
It's funny when you said that. I had the thought like, oh, was he like a priest or something? That would have been. You couldn't really commit to that. Then you'd have to wear a priest outfit the whole time.
Yeah, he was. I think he wore a rumpled suit.
Yeah, he had to, right?
A trench coat. Yeah.
Right. That's what when you take over, that you're taking over his body. That's what he's wearing.
Yeah.
Right?
I also got the wardrobe.
You got to keep it? Oh, no, you got the. Do you have that? Did you keep the?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
I have like 4 suits.
Yeah.
4 trench coats.
What was the thing? Isn't there something specific about the tie? It's just sort of undone.
The tie is like backwards.
Right.
The front bit of the tie is backwards and it's all screwed up. And it was actually because early on, I was like tying my tie myself and I tied it wrong and it flipped around and then we shot a whole scene. It was backwards. And then we were like, well, I guess let's just say it's established that way.
Oh my God.
And so that became.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Scholars years from now will try to figure out
Yeah.
why.
There were so many things like that were kind of like some weird accident or whatever.
That was great. Right from the horse's mouth.
And now it's time for everybody's favorite segment.
Within the Bible, angels' natural state is made up of entirely light. However, they do at times take human form to deal with practical matters on earth.
Angels in human form most frequently occur in the book of Genesis, the first book of the Hebrew Bible and Christian Old Testament. Rob, what's the second book of the Bible?
After Genesis?
Yes.
That's, I don't know. Do you? Sphenesis.
I do.
No, I don't know. No.
A lot of things are coming clear right now, buddy. A lot of things are coming clear.
I know, and I was in Catholic school for 12 years.
Well, somebody with what? Your eyes closed? It's Exodus.
Exodus.
It narrates the primeval history of the world, Rob.
In Genesis 18, Abraham welcomed 3 guests who appeared at first to be nothing more than some travelers.
In Genesis 19, 2 angels went to the town of Sodom, where they were assumed to be simply a pair of human visitors looking for a good
In
time.
Genesis 32, Jacob wrestles an angel in human form so that they are on equal footing. During the confrontation, Jacob dislocates his hip.
Who knew that happened in the
Yeah.
Bible?
And that's
You
the
were like-
very first hip
hip.
replacement. Happens right there.
It's the first time anybody in recorded history had gone, time out.
Time out. Whoa,
I
my
think
hip.
I hurt my hip.
There is no mention of vessels, so there is no way to know how angels pick what their human form looks like. There you go.
Well, maybe we'll learn in this next segment called Fun Fact! Fun Fact!
This is fun. Okay. The title is a reference to the second coming of Jesus as described in the book of Revelation. In the Bible, when all who are true believers will rise up to heaven upon his return.
In Brazil, it was called The Shape of an Angel. In Germany, it was called The Second Coming. In Hungary, it was called Demons. And in Japan, it's called The Happy Fun Boat That Kills You.
I think Brazil got it right. That feels like best of all of them. Jimmy Novak was from Pontiac, Illinois. In the beginning of season 4, Dean was buried in Pontiac, Illinois, where he was raised from the grave by Castiel. Interesting.
That's got to be just a coincidence, right? They didn't do that on
That's
purpose.
pretty great.
The name Jimmy Novak may be referring to Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak, who starred together in the Hitchcock movie Vertigo. Another theory is that the last name Novak came from Richard Spate's 7th grade science teacher, Frank Novak. The real truth will never be known.
But Jimmy Novak is such a great name. It's like from a comic book. You know, the Castiel's human name is Jimmy Novak.
I know.
Coincidence? ? There is also a real Jimmy Novak, a Chicago radio host who used to run a segment called 420 Hit of the Day. And this, of course, is episode 20 from season 4.
Which, by the way, we didn't really talk about the fact that it's episode 420, which explains why, for people who don't know and they can't see us, why Rob is smoking a joint. Because 420 is Smoke a Joint Day, April 20th or 420. I think it's based on a law to outlaw marijuana or something back in the day.
Yeah, there are different theories about what 420.
We got a 420 going on over here.
But yes, something like that. There are different theories of what that means. But it is true that on the airplane, when I watched this episode, I'm like, which one is it? Oh, 420. That's how I remembered it.
Yeah. And I say, in the same way that I fly the American flag on 4th of July, on 420, Rob gets high. And when you say for episode 420, and we knew this was coming, Rob said, fine, I'll do it, but I'm going to be high. And when I'm working with Rob on a convention or anywhere, on any professional environment, and the clock strikes 420, Rob gets high. And I admire that commitment to honoring what 420 means.
Yeah,
stands for. So tip of the cap to you, sir.
That is the point. I mean, that's, and on April 20th, we go nuts.
Remember the old factory site when Castiel instructs Dean to meet him? Misha has been quoted in interviews saying, we went and shot at an abandoned warehouse last week, and Jared and Jensen and I did get scolded for breaking some windows. In Collins' defense, he tried to point out that the windows were asking for it.
Misha.
And that's the kind of logic that'll get you canceled from the window community.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is a great episode, man. I mean, great to see the origin story of Castiel and Jimmy Novak, and great to see that Misha isn't just a pretty face. He's a heck of an actor. Cheater in Wordle, but a wonderful performer on television. And I think it was really cool to watch him do what he did. And Jeremy Carver set him up for success with a great script, well directed by Beeson. It was just a really good episode.
I agree. So good. And and I'm excited about the end of the season. This is it's really ramping up to be a exciting finish. So please join us on the trip, on the road so far.
Hey, good pun. Good pun.
This episode of Supernatural features Jared Padalecki as Sam Winchester, Jensen Ackles as Dean Winchester, and Misha Collins as Castiel. Guest stars include Jim Beaver, Julie McNiven, Wynn Everett, and Sydney Imbo. The Rapture was written by Jeremy Carver, directed by Charles Beeson. Editing by Anthony Pinker, music by Jay Gruska. Executive produced by Eric Kripke and Robert Singer. This episode originally aired on April 2nd, 2009. This episode of Supernatural Then and Now was hosted and executive produced by Richard Speight Jr. and Rob Benedict.
Produced by Stephen Hine, written by Stephen Hine and Hada Holscher.
And edited and associate produced by Trey Booty.
Ooh, what's up, buddy?
Music provided by Tim Wynn.
The episode was recorded with the help of Sonic Fuel Studios.
This podcast is from Story Mill Media.
Follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at SPN Then and Now.
And become a member of the podcast at patreon.com/SPN Then and Now. All right, so we'll probably go get right into it, and we'll do the intro later, so we can talk about you behind your back.
Right, that makes sense. Oh, and I have some shit to say about Todd.
Story Mill Media.